All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. First of all, I want to say I want to apologize to Deborah Whitman. We were going to have her on as well. We had some issues with Skype. We don't have a lot of time left, so I'm not going to have enough time to have 3 people on the panel for the last 25 minutes of talk time. Jesse and Lars have some things that I think we're going to burn up most of that time relatively quickly. So, Deborah, if you're listening, and I think you are, I want to call you after the program, and we'll get you on later in the week to tell us about your experience at Bohemian Grove. Again, I apologize, and we will rectify it and get you onto the program. All right, during the break, I asked Jesse and Lars, to break it down for us, because if I'm confused about the different topics that we've talked about in the couple times that Jesse has been on, then I'm sure there's a lot of other listeners are as well. So basically, when I think of Jesse Beltran and the work he's done, and Lars as well, I think of, my military service when I had told Jesse when I was on the program that I took this vaccine, I'm doing air quotes, vaccine for botulism, because we were all told WMDs were everywhere. Saddam Hussein was going to unleash them, and I was standing in the desert and they said, take this shot or don't take the shot, but, this is how you die from botulism, and a horrifying picture they paint you, and then you stand there and you take the shot. Jesse let me know that it very well could have been, I could have been implanted with an RFID chip at that time. Now, so I'm thinking all this information that they're bringing to the program requires that you have to have, some kind of a mechanical device implanted into you. Now, what they're talking about in the first part of the program isn't the case. I mean, this is technology that's evolved, or and I don't know if we want to call it weaponized, that can be used against people, it can be used against groups, it can be used to control, to manipulate, and it doesn't require any kind of apparatus inside your body. So, Jesse, Lars, I'll throw it to Jesse. Maybe explain the difference between the two, the mechanical and the quite a bit more broad spectrum weaponry. And again, I apologize if you don't want to call it weaponry, but it sure sounds like it to me.
Yeah, well, actually, I'll let Lars expound on it.
Basically, you have to imagine that the microwaves, you can broadcast them like a floodlight or like a big beam that is very broad, and you can attack a lot of people, even whole areas and countries with this beam. And you can imagine if you go into a spotlight, or a laser beam accuracy. Mm-hmm. And you can utilize those microwave weapon systems on people, either as on a broad, boosting it over a broad area and affecting everybody, or with pinpoint accuracy like laser. And you would have to basically track people. If you are talking laser mode, you would have to track people and do that manually. And this is where it comes full circle. If you have an RFID implant, you can automate the system, because the implant will then automatically become a homing beacon where the laser can attack you. So you can attack individual people's pinpoint accuracy.
So in that respect, the RFID is a tracking device.
Yes, it could be used as such.
But it certainly doesn't stop there.
No, it does not.
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of technologies that have evolved. The RFID technology the military was working on here in the United States since the mid to late 50s, and then has evolved. Then it was a capsule about 11 centimeters, and today they have evolved in some circumstances to the size of a grain of sand. That's what the technology is. Most of it had been done for tracking purposes, but now they do biometrics. And what that means is that it can transmit your bodily information, so your heart rate, your respirations, these types of things. And even more so, and as crazy as this sounds, and as science fiction as this sounds, it can even tap into your EEG functions, and that is basically your brain frequency.
And this is how it can be used. When we were when you were on the program before, we were talking about how it could literally make people think they're crazy. It could broadcast, or they could pump information to you that would make you think you're losing your mind, voices in your head, and push people over the edge and get you committed.
Correct. And I think this would be the perfect time to play the clip that Trower exposes with the protesters and talks about this specific issue.
You bet. Lars, take it away.
Ladies were protesting about having American missiles on English soil. And it was a peaceful protest. All they were doing were camping outside the perimeter of the American base. There was no violence, no swearing, no shouting. It was a peaceful protest. And it was found that from the American base, the ladies were being microwaved, and it was actually measured. They were being microwaved to make them sick. And in fact, when the figures came out, there was a disproportionate amount of tumors, personality changes, suicidal tendencies of the ladies. They were deliberately microwaved by the Americans for protesting about their base. With one pulse frequency, you can just make people so suicidal, they can't be bothered to act like a demonstrator anymore. All they want to do is sleep or lay in bed all day. So if you're targeting demonstrators, you make them suicidally depressed, and they don't care about demonstrating anymore because they're too upset. Whereas if you want to cause a specific psychiatric illness, you would have an infrared device that followed the person, and you would link it to a pencil-thin microwave source, so the microwave beam would always target a specific gland or a specific part of the brain or an eye or a heart. So you would have them being targeted. They can cause insanity, and it was an experiment. One of the experiments was to take an ordinary sane person, cause insanity, and have a psychiatrist who was unknown to everybody diagnose schizophrenia or paranoia or a psychiatric illness. That was a successful outcome, and the person would spend the rest of their life in an asylum in misery, but to the government scientists, that was a success.
Was the guinea pig look up?
Oh yeah. I mean, humans, the difference between humans are like guinea pigs. If they want to experiment on you, by the thousands, they will. And you can be driven to insanity and death, and you just become a tick in a box without any so much as a feeling. Yeah, and this is what they do, and this is why they are above the law.
Okay, this was the clip, and I think he somewhat also explains this tracking.
Okay, when was this protest and this done to these women?
That's some years ago.
Okay, so
it was a NSA base in Britain called Menville Hill, and they are probably the biggest NSA spy base in the world. It's in the British countryside.
Unbelievable. I mean, I don't even know really where to go from them, because are we being immersed now? Because Jesse and Lars, I mean, microwave technology to control crowds. I mean, it's being portrayed as somewhat cool. They'll have it on future weapons on the History Channel. They'll show these microwave energy weapons that heat up your skin. But I mean, they're a lot further along down the road than a simple burning the skin. I mean, if they have the ability to make you suicidally depressed, so much so that not only can you not protest or speak out or defend yourself, you just want to lay in bed and curl up in the fetal position. Certainly, this technology is much further along than we're being led to, or we're being told.
Yes, it is, and it has some serious implications for democracy.
Without a doubt. If the sheeple can't be dumbed down by normal means, or through mainstream media or through propaganda, you could pacify from distance. It sounds like.
Yeah.
It's all about control, and unfortunately, this technology is the end of democracy if we don't wake up. They are implementing so many backdoor laws here within the United States and abroad. They're trying to control our water. They're trying to control what we can do with livestock. They're trying to control what we can plant on our land, and they're trying to take our land. And if you do all these things, what is left?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. You're a serf.
Exactly.
You're a.
And
Go ahead, Lars.
no, I just want to expound on that. These are not new technologies. According to Barry Trower, who's an expert and started as an expert in the 60s, they were, and he said basically those technologies were fully developed and operational in the 70s. So they've been around secretly for many, many years.
Well, and if he's talking about this NSA base where they, went after these female protesters, but then in that same clip, he's talking about you can miniaturize it or focus on a certain region, an eye, a heart, a certain gland. So if this technology, was the size of a pencil a few years ago, it makes you wonder now how pervasive this is. I mean, it could be in anything. It could be anywhere at any time. I mean, Jesse, Lars, either one of you, how surprised would we be if we heard that, you were committed because all of a sudden you went nuts? And, it would be a very easy way to get rabble-rousers under control. Did you say, and I believe you had another clip you wanted to play as well, correct?
Yeah, actually, that's part of the whole scheme, is to get people committed. And both Jesse and I are enrolled in the same program, if you like, where this is the desired outcome. And both of us have been lucky enough to be able to look through this in time.
Are you guys doing
to avoid this?
Are you guys doing something
a lot of
to protect yourself? I mean, Jesse and Lars, I mean, do you have letters written and put away in safety deposit boxes and people informed around the world? So if suddenly Jesse Beltran, he's gone absolutely ballistic, there's evidence that, you knew this was coming and here's what really happened?
Well, that won't happen. I will not go ballistic. And what we've managed to do, Lars and I managed to do, through the Forming of ICE Act, is come up with a very strategic way to educate the public. And that education in itself, in doing so, and being very persistent and pervasive and being successful at it, has given us somewhat some safety net. But I have psychologist reports that say I'm completely of sound mind, which is what we sought out to do first.
Mm-hmm.
We have radio frequency scans by physicians like Dr. John Hall, who located an RF emission. Then we had medical imagery to substantiate where there was a foreign body and so forth. The crazy thing is for those cases that we have been able to obtain all that evidence, with the exception of 2, it's very difficult to find a surgeon here in the United States who will do anything about it. They're afraid that they are going to have their license taken away or grants, funding for whatever it is that they're working on, completely absolved. And that's been the issue. The only case that we know of here in the United States is the Dave Larson case. He's a politician out of Southern California, where he had implants removed, and he is trying to get some legal ramifications done about it. And then we have Bob Boyce out of Georgia, who actually developed terminal cancer, not from 1, but from 2 RFID devices that were removed from his body. And he said to me he had succumbed to dying. But luckily enough, they were able to locate them, and they located them using an RF frequency scanner, just like what Dr. Hall has done in my circumstance.
Were they in the usual location? What was it? The jaw was.
Well, in Bob Boyce's case, his was in the shoulder and in the scapular area, right in that region. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm always terrified every time you're on here, Jesse.
Well, it's not a laughing matter. It's very serious. We started doing the radio frequency scanning specifically on symptomatic people, those who had complaints. But then, serendipitously, we ended up in the general population with some political leaders, business leaders, religious leaders, who had heard of the story and saw the video that we put out, Domestic Terrorism, Silent and Rape, and asked us to come and do the RF scanning. And what we found was actually scarier than the group that was symptomatic. The percentage was much higher, and those that were in the military were all almost exactly alike. You can superimpose them on each other in exact focal anatomical locations. Those who were incarcerated were similar to that. And then there was the third group, which the only thing that the only areas they came up positive was in the arms and shoulder areas, and the only thing they've said they'd had was the H1N1 vaccine.
Unreal. And you were expecting a rate of in the low single digits, right? And it came
Correct.
out. It came out double digits and
much higher than we ever anticipated. Yeah.
Unreal.
And so the thing is, we live in a wireless society, and what Barry Trower has come out and said is that exposure to these things are killing us, will kill us, and will have some devastating effects. I think the next clip that Lars could play, if we have time, hopefully. Sure. Here.
We have about 4 minutes.
4 minutes, and so it's perfect. So the issue where in the past there was an incident where our special forces returned from Afghanistan, and they returned to Fort Bragg. They ended up, some of them murdered their wives, beat their wives severely, very badly, and their children were subsequent victims of this.
Okay.
And they contacted United States contacted Barry Trower. Lars?
Yeah, go ahead. And let me before you started, Brett, if we run long, just let it go. Let me give a chance to thank these guys and get their information out. So go ahead, Lars.
The United States one was quite interesting. It was to do with special forces. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, they came back from a mission. And of the 6 or 8 gentlemen that were in the special forces, 5 of them, I believe, went home. I think it was 5 or 6 went home and severely beat their wives or children or both, where some of the wives died, some ended up in hospital, but they were severely beaten. And it was believed that the communications apparatus they were using was in training the brain and stimulating violence. And this was Fort Bragg. Now, I either had a phone call from Fort Bragg or I had a phone call from the embassy to ask if I knew what frequencies could cause this. Because I ended up talking to each. And I said, don't tell me, I will tell you what frequencies they have been using. Now, the special forces don't just hold them up, they're on permanently. So we're talking massive entrainment, far beyond what the ordinary person would suffer. But it induced such a level of entrainment and violence. So I told them what frequencies I believe they would be using. I sent them documentary evidence, and the whole thing was hushed over, and it was on the news, and they obviously, I would imagine, changed the frequency. So
unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, explain real quick. We do have about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes left. Explain real quick how the frequencies they were using on these soldiers. What does it do? How do they affect their mental capacity to wage war, I guess? And how do they implement this effect?
Well, basically, this was an accident. This was not deliberate. It is the communication device that they use, and it has what is called truncated microwave transmitters, and it pulses at certain frequencies that go close to the brain. And the brain entrains to that frequency, and that can induce all kinds of things, and in this case, violence.
So here's where we're going with this. Is think about all the police violence that we're exposed to today.
Exactly what I was thinking.
They're using the exact same systems. Think about our emergency personnel. the firefighters that are out there. Think about any aspect where you have an organization who uses radios near their brains, their hips. We're seeing hip cancers. And these brain tumors are astronomical. But this is the danger, and this is why the Wi-Fi system, exposure to these radio frequencies, whether it be smart grid or wherever it is, this is why we're educating the public, and that it really is time to wake up, and we need to have a very serious look at these issues.
Jesse, Lars, I can't thank you enough for your hard work and for coming on and terrifying us all. And we really should be. I mean, this is something we should be afraid of. Jesse, give us a website, and Lars, if you have a website you'd like to give out, please do so as well.
Well, it's Lars and I are the leadership of ISAAC.org. That's www.icaact.org, the International Center Against Abuse of Covert Technologies. If you suspect that you may be a victim to this type of atrocity, and we do call this domestic and international terrorism because it does fall under 8021B of the U.S. Patriot Act, and contact us. We'll be more than happy to at least give you guidance. We don't have all the answers. We're asking everyone to band together to support us, and we are doing this on an international basis.
Jesse, Beltran, Lars Drudgaard, thank you very much. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you for letting us on.
No problem at all. Guys, stay tuned. Jeff Rincey's coming up next. Have a good night. Brett, thanks for letting us run long. Again, Jeff Rintz coming up next. Have a good night. Peace.